Good morning, all of you. I welcome you all to Ansarkari. So today, as we discuss in every video, the important articles for civil services examination. So since today's The Hindu is not published, so we are going to take an important article from The Hindu okay, so it was for 2nd of June 2022. So this article becomes very important. So that's why we are taking one important article from this newspaper, and then we'll be discussing the Financial Express for 16th of January. So this article is talking about the community-oriented health services, basically India's ASHA scheme. So it was globally recognized, and you should be knowing what does ASHA stands for. So it is the Accredited Social Health Activist People, and there are around 1 million volunteers. 1 million, it equals to 10 lakh. So World Health Organization's Global Health Leader Awards 2022 was awarded to ASHA, and it was awarded for its recognition of the work done by the ASHA volunteers during the COVID-19 pandemic, and as well as for serving as a link between the communities and the health systems. So the ASHA volunteers, they play an important role acting as link between the communities and the health systems. So even before COVID-19 also, their contribution is extremely important when we talk about the community health services that are provided by them. So they have made extraordinary contributions towards enabling increased access in the primary healthcare services, and that includes the maternal and the child health during immunization and treatment of hypertension, diabetes, and tuberculosis, and also for the rural and both urban populations. So you should be clear about that. They are there in both the rural and the urban areas, and they are providing access to the primary healthcare services at the ground level. So ashas, they have played an outstanding role in making India polio free, increasing routine immunization coverage, reducing the maternal mortalities, improving the newborn survival, and in greater access to the treatment for common illnesses. So that is their contribution. It speaks about their contribution, about their hard work a lot. And talking about when did this ASHA program it all started, so it was basically launched for the rural areas in 2005 and 6 as part of the National Rural Health Mission, and later on in 2013 it was launched for the urban areas under the National Urban Health Mission in 2013. So it was extended to the urban settings also. So it is working in both rural and urban areas, and there are only women volunteers there in this scheme, and they're working with a population of nearly 1,000 people in rural areas and 2,000 people in the urban areas. So, the core of this program has been an intention to build the capacity of the community members in taking care of their own health and being partners in the health services. So, I'll repeat, the core is the to build the capacity of the community members to take care of their own health and also being partners in the health services. So looking at that, this program, it was inspired from two learnings from the past initiatives. So one was from the 1970s, and the other, it was during the early 2000s. So in 1975, WHO, it monographed title, it was a monograph title, Health by the People was released, and this was one inspiration. And also in 1978, an international conference on the primary health care in Alma-Ata, that is, it was in the then USSR, but now it is in present-day Kazakhstan. So that was held, and it gave emphasis for the countries recruiting the community health workers to strengthen their primary healthcare services and the entire health system at the primary level. So these were, we can say, this included the first inspiration, and we can say that they were called in India when this scheme or such type of model was launched. So the people, they were called the community health volunteers. And a key reason for the suboptimal success was a failure of the community health volunteers to make a community connect. So this was, we can say, the challenge when this scheme was initially launched, not as Asha scheme, but after, we can say, the inspiration from the 1970s and from this 1978, we can say, conference. So the main challenge back then was that we lagged, or there was missing, we can say, community connect, and also there was lack of political will, which was another factor responsible behind the decline of this initiative. But the biggest inspiration for the Asha program that was launched in 2005 and 6, it came from the Mithinin, which is, it means a female friend in Chhattisgarh. So a Mithinin initiative was there in Chhattisgarh. So the main inspiration behind the Asha program was this initiative. And so on similar lines, this was launched at Pan India level. And so the we can say what are the characteristics of the Asha program, or what factors or what things enabled it to be a success for India. Firstly, it includes the Asha selection. It involved key village stakeholders to ensure that there is community ownership. So the village stakeholders were selected. Secondly, they came from the same village where they worked, so that ensured familiarity and better community connect and acceptance. This was another thing. And the idea of having activist in the name, it was to reflect that they were the community's representatives in the health system. So even the choice of word matters a lot and impacts the thinking of the people at the ground level. So that's why we can say activist word was used. And next, that they were also called as volunteers. So that was partly to avoid a painfully slow process for the government recruitment that is there, and to allow an opportunity to implement the performance based incentives. And a practical aspect was that the performance based incentives that are provided, they were being rolled out for the first time in the health services on such a large scale. So these were the factors which we can say, because of which we see that the Asha program has been a success. But at the same time, there are some challenges which needs to be addressed. So that includes that when the newly appointed Asha workers, they were struggling to find their way and in coordinating things with the villages and with the health system. So their linkage with the two existing health and nutrition system functionaries. So before this Asha scheme, there was already, we had the Anganwadi workers working and the auxiliary nurse midwives were there. So when these Asha volunteers, they were struggling to connect with the people and establish a connect with the health system also. So they were, we can say, linked, or they started coordinating with this already existing Anganwadi workers and the auxiliary nurse midwives. So this, we can say that also, they were made to connect with more of the panchayat representatives and influential community members at the village level. So, all this was facilitated, and this resulted in an all women partnership, that is AAA. So, here AAA stands for ASHA workers, the Anganwadi workers, and the auxiliary nurse midwives. So, it resulted in such a, we can say, great network at the ground level, at the village level. And other steps also included that platforms like village health sanitation and nutrition committees were formed for coordination and service delivery. So there are certain ongoing challenges as we were talking about, so which definitely needs urgent resolution. So the Asha workers, they are the only ones out of this AAA who do not have a fixed salary, and they do not have the opportunities for career progression also. So this is the first challenge. So they are supplemented, the incentives that are given are supplemented by a fixed amount in a few Indian states only, and the total payment, it continues to remain low, and they're often delayed. So there is dissatisfaction, there are regular agitations and protests by the Asha volunteers in different states of India. The second challenge is that it is a time that inbuilt institutional mechanisms, they are created for the capacity building, and avenues for career progression are created for these Asha workers. So this needs to be taken up. Thirdly, we see that extending the benefits of the social sector services, it including the health insurance, should be considered. So they should be provided, the Asha volunteers, they should be provided with the social security benefits. And We need an independent and external review of the program also. So that would be coming up with, we can say, more solutions and what are the other problems which we are might not be aware about right now. So an external review is also required. And lastly, there are arguments for the regularization of many temporary posts in the National Health Mission and making the ASHAs permanent government employees. So these are, we can say, all the demands and how we can address the problems also. So this was all about how our community oriented health services they are working right now, what are the challenges and how did they evolve, what were the inspiration, and since they were given the we can say global recognition by WHO, so definitely their contributions and their hard work has been appreciated and it has been recognized, and we need to take into consideration the current challenges and ensure that they are resolved and making the system much more stronger. Now we'll take up the Financial Express. So in Financial Express, firstly, you should be knowing about a concessional tax regime. So your income up to 2,50,000, it is not taxed. Then next 2.5 lakh, that is between 2.5 lakh to 5 lakhs, it attracts an income tax of 5%. And likewise, you can see how it increases as you move ahead and earn more. So this is for your general awareness. Then Oxfam report says that top 10% people in India, they own 72% of the wealth, which is huge, and it is showing the intensity, the amount of inequality in India. And top 1% people, they own 40.6% of the total wealth. So you have the figure for top 1% people and top 10% people. And this means that the top 1%, they own over 13 times the wealth of the bottom half of the society. So 13 times they have more wealth. And talking about if we tax even 1%, impose a 1% tax on the billionaires, that can fund our health mission for the next 3 years. And if we tax them at 2.5% or the top on the top 100 people, so that could fund bringing kids back to school. So that is just an idea which was proposed by this report. And India has a world's highest number of poor people. That is, we can say at 229 million people are poor in India, which is the highest in the world. So, and talking about the number of billionaires that were added between 2020 and 2022. So, in 2020, it was 102 people in India were billionaires, but it rose to 166 in 2022. So that was one thing which we had to discuss. And now we'll move to the editorial page. So here, firstly, we'll be talking about privatization, disinvestment, and strategic disinvestment. So firstly, when we start with this article, it is important for you to be clear about the meaning of privatization, strategic disinvestment, and disinvestment, and also that are they different from each other and what are the differences if they are different. So firstly, privatization and strategic disinvestment, they are the same thing, but disinvestment is different from them. So when we talk about privatization or the strategic disinvestment, here the management control of the central public sector enterprises are also transferred to the acquiring private party, whereas in case of disinvestment, the management control, it remains with the government only. So that is the main difference between them, and it is important for you to be clear with this difference also. Then this article is saying that the disinvestment process, it is a slow work in progress and it has been underwhelming how it has been performing. So we need to change our gears and address the situation. So in 2022's budget, the government included the disinvestment plans for BPCL, Shipping Corporation of India, the Container Corporation of India, IDBI Bank. Recently, we saw that government is going to dilute its 60% stake in IDBI Bank. So these were some of the proposals in 2022 budget, but we see that the plan for BPCL, it has been shelved, and Center is soon going to exit the IDBI Bank that we saw a few days ago, that it is going to dilute 60% stake in it. So However, the proposals, they were, we can say, they were not taken up seriously, and they still remain on papers. So the upshot is that the strategic disinvestment, it is still a work in progress, despite the government's stated intention that it is no business to be in business. So this is, we can say, the main motto behind carrying out strategic disinvestment by the government, that it has no business to be in business. And however, some of these transactions, they are strictly not privatization. So when we look at the examples of HPCL, which was taken over by another state-owned oil and natural gas corporation, so again, a public enterprise has been taking over. So we cannot say that these are this is leading to privatization, or this is actually what we mean by the strategic disinvestment. Similarly, in case of REC, it was also taken over by the state owned power finance corporation. But in some entities where we looked at, where actually the strategic disinvestment or privatization has been done, it includes Air India, it includes Air India and NINL. So these, we can say, are the perfect examples of strategic disinvestment. But the government-owned entities, they cannot go deeper into the business which with each other, when the stated intention is to get out of them business, out of that business. So when we say that government says that it has no business to be in business, so when we look at how the disinvestments they are being done, so the public enterprises are only taking over the control of an already public enterprise, so that we cannot say that you're fulfilling the your desired intention. So it must not only speed up, basically government must not only speed up but also implement in a highly transparent manner, so that it does not get easily derailed. So this was regarding the disinvestment and the strategic disinvestment. Now talking about our Indian taxation system and how we can increase the tax revenues for the government. What steps are needed? Do we need to increase the tax base, or do we need to go for increasing the tax rate? So what should be, we can say, the sustainable way ahead? So firstly, in short, we can say that the government, it needs to expand the tax base and not the taxes, and the already taxed some more. So that is not going to be, we can say, when you go for increasing the tax rate, that is not, we can say, a desirable or a long lasting thing. And sustainability and realization of the tax must be made the focus of the regime. So the main focus should be making the tax regime more sustainable and more, we can say, reliable, and also ensure that our taxes are being paid by more and more number of people. So that means that expanding the tax base, so we need to include more and more number of people under the tax net. So when we look at the figures, so when we talk about the population, so approximately we can say that India has around 135 crore people as of July 31st of 2022, but only a little over, we can say, 5.8 crore income tax returns they were filed for the current financial year, which is just 4% of our total population. So this shows that our tax base is so narrow, and we need to take steps to ensure that our tax base, it gets expanded, so that more and more people, they start paying taxes, and this results into increase in the government's tax revenue, which is definitely going to have further benefits which will look forward. So for the, when we talk about the corporate taxes, so the number of legal business entities in India, it is also staggering, and those paying the taxes, they make for a low number. So people who are paying, they are earning less, but when we talk about the legal business entities, even they are staggering. So besides, we have a growing problem of the online businesses who are operating from outside the Indian territory, and yet they are allowed to sell the competing goods and services in the Indian market. So this is another problem. And when we again try to look at the number of luxury cars, they far exceeds the number of taxpayers. So here also we are seeing certain discrepancy, and this anomaly, it means that the goods, they are funded by the evaders. So that is one thing. And India had 8.22 crore taxpayers, which includes individuals and corporates, in financial year 2020. So This is one figure. And when we talk about the tax to GDP ratio, it is around 20% in India, which is below par if we compare it with the other rapidly developing economies. Also, where here we are not talking about the developed countries. Even when we compare with the other rapidly developing countries, so even it is very low when we talk about the tax to GDP ratio in case of India, which is at 20%. So here, what do we mean by the tax to GDP ratio? So basically, when your GDP increases, your tax revenue or the tax collected by the government must also increase. And if this ratio is increasing, so it is showing that things are moving in a synergetic manner. But we can also say that the amount or the percentage of GDP that is collected in the form of taxes is only 20% as of now. So this is the meaning, and it is small because only a small percentage of population it pays taxes. And we can enhance the compliance in tier 2 cities, and we can target the professionals as well as the businesses who do not avail of the presumptive taxation. So that will enhance our tax base, and measures will enable the government to remove the cess and surcharge. So when we see that our tax base it starts to expand, so which will result in increase in the tax revenue for the government. So we can expect that government will do away, or it can reduce with the amount of cess and the surcharge that it imposes, which is a tax on tax. So that can be one relief that we can expect out of the situation if things they happen as we discussed. And there's the need of the hour is to parallelly arm the enforcement agencies with cutting edge technologies to catch the smugglers and the underground operators. So basically, to we can say, when we talk about the parallel economy or the black economy, so for that we need to make our enforcement agencies more empowered through providing them with the cutting edge technologies. And definitely, India has a goal of becoming a $10 trillion economy by 2030. So for that, this step basically of expanding the tax base can play an important role. And as I just when I started with this article, I said that our main emphasis should be on sustainability and realization of the taxes, and a consistent and less complex taxation system will not only reduce the tax evasions, but it will also encourage more domestic and foreign investors to invest in India. So we need a consistent and a less complex taxation system, which is focusing upon sustainability and realization and is more reliable, will be beneficial. And taxes, they should be moderate for the new emerging sectors, so that again we are attracting more of investments. So our focus should be on compliance and simplifying this taxation system, apart from expanding the tax base instead of going for increasing the taxes. So that's how we can summarize this article, and this is extremely important. So that's all for today. We'll comprehensively will discuss the Hindu newspaper tomorrow, because today we took up the some other day's newspaper. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining us, and you can subscribe to our channel, and do not forget to share this video as much as possible. And you'll also get the PDF link in the description box, so you can go through that also. And thank you again for joining us.